States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's join together in prayer. God, our Father, we come before you at the close of this day, giving you the praise for a beautiful day, Father. We're thankful for how you've blessed us in so many ways in our community. We're grateful tonight, Father, that we can lift up to you this community and how that we know, Father, you have our needs in your heart. And you know us, Father, and you know what we need. Father, we're grateful for the men and women that serve this city. We're grateful for their passion and their love for what they do. We ask, Father, that you will protect them as they serve us. Father, help us as a council body to do what is right for the citizens of this community. We're thankful that we can serve one another. We pray that you'll be with our mayor and lead him in his day-to-day activities and direct him and give him your wisdom and your strength, Father. In all things, Father, we glorify you. We're grateful, Father, that we can pray to you and thank you for democracy and what it means to be in a country of freedom. Father, help us not to take that for granted. Father, help us to be convicted to defend freedom. Father, again, for this day, we're thankful for this time together as citizens who want to serve. Through Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. You may be seated. First of all, I will ask Clerk Simmons to call the roll.
Bennell.
Present.
Gauntz.
Yes, ma'am.
Kirkpatrick.
Yes, ma'am.
Lowry. Here. Marion.
Yes, ma'am.
Neal.
Here.
Norris.
Here.
Trigg. Witcher.
Here.
Everybody's.
All right, we have 100% attendance. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. We have important business to transact at each of these meetings, and it's good that we're all here and involved. The next thing I want to do, you all on Thursday got the agenda in your packets that we're going to be considering tonight in the meeting. So the first thing I would do would to entertain a motion to approve the agenda as it was presented to you.
Motion, Lowry.
This item is to approve the minutes from our meeting back on October the 9th. I trust that you all have had a chance to look over those, and when you see fit, entertain a motion to approve the minutes from October the 9th.
Motion, Bennell.
Okay, is there a second?
Second, Norris.
Okay, so we have any discussion of the minutes from October the 9th? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The minutes are in the record books for October the 9th. Moving forward, we have some old business we need to take care of first of all, and I'll call on City Attorney Rich Alexander to present some municipal orders for us.
The first municipal order is an order for R.P. Watson to be reappointed to the Code Enforcement Board. This appointment is for a 3-year term, expiring October 31, 2026, adopted today's date.
All right. You have the municipal order before you. I entertain a motion to approve R.P. Watson to be serving on that board.
Second. Witcher.
Okay. Is there a motion first?
Motion, Lowry.
Okay. All right. All in favor, is there any discussion about R.P. Watson, first of all? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
On order of the Mayor, Randall Norris is hereby reappointed to serve as a member of the Housing Authority of Glasgow Board of Commissioners. This is an appointment for 4 years, expiring October 31, 2027, adopted today's date.
Likewise, I will entertain a motion to approve this municipal order appointing Randall Norris to the Housing Authority of Glasgow's Board of Commissioners.
Motion.
By James Neal, second.
Second, Bennell.
Okay, all right. Any discussion on Randall Norris being reappointed to the Housing Authority? If there is none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, like sign. Okay. And then we have one more. This is another municipal order. Rich?
Yes, sir. On order of the Mayor, Roland Underwood is hereby reappointed to serve as a member of the Water and Sewer Commission. This appointment is a 3-year term, expiring October 31, 2026, adopted today's date.
All right, you have heard the municipal order. I'll entertain a motion to approve Roland Underwood being reappointed to the Water and Sewer Commission.
Motion.
Okay, I heard several people over there. Give me a name.
Motion, Marion.
Okay.
Motion, Kirkpatrick.
Okay, all right. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, like sign. These are three excellent members who serve very well in these positions of dealing with very important things that go on in the city. That completes our old business on the agenda. Let's move to the new business. We have some ordinances to consider. Rich, you want to talk about the first one we're going to bring up here?
Yes, sir. I'm going to be reading from a summary that I've prepared, but this is an ordinance that amends the text of the city's planning and development ordinance, codified as Chapter 152 of the City of Glasgow Code of Ordinances. This ordinance amends the City of Glasgow's Code of Ordinances, Title 11, Chapter 158, in the following respects. One, it creates a new fencing requirement that is added to each zoning classification, and those sections are set forth in the ordinance. The fencing requirement is the same for each classification, and it reads as follows. Fencing for privacy or security purposes within a zoning district shall adhere to the following requirements. First, the materials for fencing shall be restricted to materials whose intended original use is for providing privacy and or security. No used materials are to be utilized or repurposed as fencing, including but not limited to pallets, metal roofing, tires, barrels, and the like. Secondly, a fence can be placed directly on a property line with the exception that the front yard property line, which must be a minimum of 10 feet from the property line or right-of-way. A fence may be permitted to be located on the front yard property line, provided that no more than 3 feet in height, and it does not intrude with the visibility triangle set forth in another section of the zoning ordinance. This new text amendment also creates a tiny home development within the sections previously entitled manufactured home parks. That's sections 158.295 through 158.309. And this text amendment defines a tiny home as follows. A panel-built dwelling that is constructed as separate pieces, that is a factory-built or shipped to a site with finished walls and floors that are stacked on top of each other for transport. Or it could be the tiny home, non-traditional and or small dwelling, a small family residential dwelling equal to or greater than 120 square feet, but less than 1,000 square feet, that is modular, panel-built, mobile, manufactured, or a tiny house on wheels that may be built on a permanent chassis that is delivered to a site or constructed on site using traditional building methods with or without a permanent foundation. And this text amendment then creates a new section added to the zoning ordinances related to short-term rentals. And this section reads as follows. Purpose. A short-term rental is a residence which is not owner-occupied and rented or leased to occupants for a period of 30 days or less. And a short-term rental shall be permitted as a conditional use within the R1, the R2, the R3 zoning districts, and permitted within B1, B2, B3, or OP zoning districts. A short-term rental is prohibited within the R4, I1, I2, and public zoned district. The requirements for a short-term rental are as follows. No short-term rental shall allow for more than 2 occupants per bedroom. There shall only be 1 individual advertised short-term rental allowed per dwelling unit. The short-term rental shall not be allowed any closer than 1,000 feet from one another as measured by the adjacent roadway in all residential zoning districts other than R1, which is restricted to 1 per 1,500 feet as measured by the adjacent roadway. And parking for a short-term rental shall not exceed the minimum set forth in section 158-400 for dwellings. Violators of this provision will be towed at the property owner's expense. Kevin will be speaking more of this in a moment, but short-term rentals are your Airbnb, that type of scenario. This ordinance shall take effect upon its passage and publication according to law.
All All right, you have heard the reading of the ordinance. Let's get it up on the floor. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
Motion, Lowry.
Is there a second?
Second, Norris.
Okay, and now, from the standpoint of discussion, I'd like to ask the Planning and Zoning Director, Kevin Myatt, to come to the podium, because I'm sure he can explain this in a simpler detail and perhaps answer some questions we might have about it. Kevin?
Certainly. First off, I guess let's start with, is there any questions that you might have as the text is presented to you, and we'll go from there then.
Kevin, I have a couple of questions. The first one deals with how does this relate to subdivision restrictions?
Okay.
So if you could
Yeah,
expand on that
certainly.
just a
So
little bit.
subdivision restrictions are privately done. They are a civil matter between property owners. So anything that goes above and beyond what our minimum rules are within the zoning ordinance or the subdivision regs is not enforced by my office, nor the city, nor the county. So as far as subregs, it won't have anything to do with private subdivision regulations.
So in a subdivision, someone developing a subdivision could have restrictions, obviously, that go beyond what's here. But again, that's a matter that's for that subdivision, that private development there.
Certainly. So one easy example is our minimum setback from a right-of-way is 35 feet. In a private subdivision setting, they may want it at 50 feet, so the homes are a little bit further back. I can only enforce up to that 35-foot mark, and then beyond that, they would have to, get a lawyer involved with civil litigation at that point, if it required it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Kevin, what brings this to your attention? Has there been some complaints or anything?
Typically, we try to take stock of some of the complaints that we receive on a daily basis, and some of those are with regards to fencing, and some of those have been in regards to the short-term rentals, the Airbnbs, Verbos, those type of things. So we'll start with the fencing. We have no design guidelines with regards to fencing. So in theory, a fence can be anything that obstructs someone from crossing a property, made out of any material. And while we see that and we understand that individuals want to try to put up a fence to keep something in or keep something out, in an effort to help everyone in the neighborhood with regards to property values. The commission, along with some of the members of the city council here, felt it was necessary to at least address what fencing materials should be made out of, how close they can go, what they can be done with in that sense, okay? So that's why we set some parameters there. We didn't go into great detail that says it has to be vinyl or plank fencing. It's just taking out some of those unsightly items that they are not fences, no matter how you want to spell it out. If they get caught with wind loads or anything like that, they're going to go across the neighborhood, and they could potentially be quite dangerous. The other thing, and probably, I guess, the bigger item is the short-term rentals. And just to give you an understanding, the Board of Adjustment, which is a Glasgow-only board, receives and hears these. The state of Kentucky considers these to be businesses. They are no different. Any short-term rental is no different than a hotel. It just doesn't have the sign above it blinking. You are paying for a product, service, or good. It's a business. Those businesses, no matter what it is not permitted within a residential zoning unless it goes before the Board of Adjustment and a conditional use is issued. Conditional use is, as it says, it's not permitted in that zoning, but we're going to attach certain conditions that would allow you to have it there, to hours of operation, days of the week that you can operate, how many people that you can serve, those type of things. In this instance here, though, we've received numerous phone calls from neighborhoods that says it changes their neighborhood characteristics. They don't know their neighbors. They want to have some control over how it's going to look and those type of things. So to help the Board of Adjustment out, we created what the short-term rental requirement is. Now, the Kentucky Building Code, not a Glasgow ordinance, not a Barron County ordinance, but the Kentucky Building Code says that if you stay at a place for less than 30 days, that is a short-term rental. Anything beyond 30 days is a long-term rental, long-term lease. It's 32 days, long-term lease. So 30 days or less is the way we have to set our standards at. Then we've looked at, in an effort to keep neighborhoods somewhat consistent so that not every house is a short-term rental, if The public felt it was necessary to say, hey, they don't need to be right beside each other. They need to be expanded out a little bit further away from each other. So you have the mechanism wrote in there about the distances, the 1,000 foot away from one another. And that's on the adjacent road. So if you have an intersection and you have one that's on Maplewood and you have one that's on Cherry Street or Leslie, they're not 1,000 feet apart from each other because they're not on the same roadway. So you can see it's only 1,000 foot down Leslie, only 1,000 foot down Maplewood, only 1,000 foot down another street like that. So they have to be adjacent on that street to be 1,000 feet apart. The R1 classification is usually our largest residential zoning classification with regards to sites and lots. So the committee felt it would be necessary to spread those out because typically what you see in the R1 classification are larger type lots, larger type structures that are on there. So they're spaced a little bit further apart than your normal R2, R3 classifications where you have a little bit higher density ratings. Okay? So they expanded those to 1,500 feet. So having said that, and this is where it kind of gets a little, I don't think it gets a little muddy, but it potentially could. If you are operating a short-term rental currently, you are in violation if you have not come before the Board of Adjustment and you're not inside of a commercial zoning classification. So the Airbnbs, the Verbos that you may see, the short-term rentals that you may see that's along the square or in a commercially zoned property are allowed to be there, automatically permitted. It's those that's in the neighborhoods in the residential zoning classifications. The other side of that coin, where somebody might say, hey, I don't know who my neighbors are, they're coming and going every day and every night. That's understandable. And we've heard that. This is hopefully in an effort to kind of push those away so that there's only maybe one in a neighborhood as opposed to having 7. Other side of that coin, though, is this. All of those businesses, all of those apps have rating classifications. If you're going to stay somewhere, typically you're going to look at what that place looks like, right? If it looks pretty terrible, doesn't look great, more than likely you're not going to stay there. So there is an incentive for that homeowner or that owner of that property to maintain that property, to make it look good, to landscape it, paint it, whatever they may do, because they're going to get a rating, and the homeowner or the person that's renting that place, they're going to get a rating as well. So it's not I don't know who it is, or I'm never going to see my neighbors. I don't know what's going on there. You do have some at least teeth to go after that. Because as of right now, if it's a long-term lease or long-term rental, and somebody's got 5 cars parked in their yard, or they've got 15 people living there, there's nothing we can do. We're not going to go out there and tell them they can't have it. When you go before this board, they may put those conditions that says, hey, all vehicles have to be on the driveway or on street. You've got quiet hours between 11 or 10 to 7. And it's already wrote in here, no more than 2 people per bedroom. You've got a house that's got 5 bedrooms, you could potentially have 15 to 20 people there. And they typically, we don't have it in here, but typically your Board of Adjustment says that you have to at least stay there for 2 days, because hopefully that eliminates individuals from just coming in, throwing a party, destroying stuff, and then leaving. That's pretty rare. That's a rare event simply because they're on that app, their profile's on that app. They're going to be getting a rating system from that as well. They get a terrible rating, nobody's going to rent to them at the same time. The other thing, too, is the state of Kentucky says that this is subject to transient tax because it is transient lodging. It is the same as the hotels and the motels that we have here in town. So if you are operating an Airbnb or Vrbo and you're on those sites, you're required by state law. Now, we are on a complaint-driven basis. There's only 2 of us in the office. I'm not going to drive around and look at this. We at least had to acknowledge it because you have people coming to the Board of Adjustment asking for this about every month, and we had no guidelines to give them an understanding. So they're kind of setting precedents there, and they didn't really want to do that. So they asked the Planning Commission to come forward with some new text and present that to you all, and I know that we've had council members that have served on that, Mr. Trigg and Mrs. Lowry and others that have been on that committee to at least hear those concerns and those grievances.
So thanks for your explanation on that. And one last question, I guess, within the zoning, is it whoever comes and fills out first can do that, and then that permits the 1,000 feet like you're talking about?
It's a first come, first served type basis. Now, there's a little bit more to it than that. If you cease the use by state law, if you cease the use for a period of 6 months or more, you're gone. If you sell, it's no longer valid, okay? If you sell that parcel of ground to this parcel, to this person, it's gone. It doesn't transfer with property owner, okay? So you got the business license for yourself, and the new person that gets that business license would have to apply before the Board of Adjustment as well.
Thanks for clarifying.
You're welcome.
And just one more question. The enforcement of this, that's going to fall under your office, the Board of Adjustments, or our code enforcement? Who's it going to fall under?
It will fall under my office and the Code Enforcement Office as well. It's a joint effort in that part of it. It has to be. The Board of Adjustment is, I facilitate those meetings for them. But we have all the appeals. There's 835, so there's been 835 appeals to the Board of Adjustment since they were created in 1940. Some of those are Airbnbs and Verbos. We keep those records up to date. We have a map that has a listing of every variance and every conditional use in the city, all 835. So we will keep up with the map with the 1,000-foot radius.
So with this ordinance, and this will help you in the enforcement of these short-term rentals?
It will.
That's what we want.
Yeah. And one thing I'd like to be extremely clear about, we're not trying to end these by any means. We want individuals to be able to have these, and maybe they've got a home they've inherited, and they don't necessarily want to live there, but they see the advantage of being able to do a short-term rental, and they want to have it there. We want to offer that up. We want to allow that to happen, but at the same time keep the neighborhood characteristics close to the same that they have been as well. So without that property and that building going into dilapidation.
Okay. So this is moving us forward with having a good ordinance on the book that's enforceable and maintains the value of properties for all in that neighborhood.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Good discussion. Other questions, other discussion you want to ask Kevin while he's here at the podium? Any other discussion about this particular ordinance? All right. If there is no further discussion, we'll call the question. All those in favor of approving this ordinance indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance passes. Don't go anywhere, Kevin, because we may well have you back up here for this next ordinance that Rich is going to tell us about.
This is an ordinance amending the Glasgow zoning ordinance, rezoning property located at 203 McKenna Street. It appearing that Jackie Taylor, the applicant and owner, has requested a zoning change for the property located at 203 McKenna Street, consisting of .37 acres more or less in the city of Glasgow, from an R2 to a B2 classification. A schematic drawing of said property subject to rezoning is attached as Exhibit A and incorporated by reference. A trial-type due process hearing concerning this proposed zoning change was held on August 21 by the Planning and Zoning Commission, resulting in the unanimous recommendation by the Commission that the property hereinafter described be rezoned from R2 to a B2 classification. Copies of the findings and recommendations of the Planning and Zoning Commission have been forwarded to the Council, which are hereby adopted by the Glasgow City Council and are attached to this ordinance as Exhibit B. Now therefore be it hereby ordained by the city as follows. Section 1. The findings and recommendations of the Joint City-County Planning and Zoning Commission, copies of which are attached as Exhibit B, are hereby approved in all respects. Section 2, the property located at 203 McKenna Street is rezoned from R2 to B2 classification. The real property covered by this ordinance being described in Exhibit A to this ordinance. Section 3, all future development of this property shall comply with the requirements of the Development Plan Ordinance adopted by the Council on December 30, 1991. Section 4 of this ordinance shall take effect upon its passage and publication according to law.
All right, you've heard the reading of this ordinance. To get it up on the floor, I will entertain a motion to approve this ordinance as it was read. Okay, is there a second?
Second, Benel.
Okay, now there's possibly some discussion on this. Kevin, if you want to come back to the podium, people might have questions about this. If there are any, please address them to our planning and zoning coordinator there. Anybody have any questions about this particular ordinance?
At the CPA office,
Yes, sir. It's the lot adjacent to them, but they do own that lot as well. The whole purpose of this, why this came to be, was the home was dilapidated, and the applicant would like to have torn it down. However, we have an ordinance on the books that says that an accessory structure can't be the only building on a lot. It has to have a principal structure. They had built a garage in the back to house some of their files and data, and they couldn't add the property to their property because it was zoned residential. It was not zoned commercial, so it couldn't be used for that. So this was the process of getting it rezoned so that they can now tear down the structure, which is in the process of being demolished.
Looks good. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Any other discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor of approving this ordinance indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, like sign. And the ordinance carries. Let's continue with some of our new business now, Rich.
This is another ordinance. This amends the Code of Ordinances, Title 11, Business Regulations, Chapters 110 and 113. That whereas the City Code of Ordinances, Title 11, Business Regulations, Chapters 110 and 113, contain certain provisions related to the occupational license fees for businesses in general and fees related to transient merchants. And whereas the city's Finance Committee has met to discuss amendments to the business regulations related to the occupational license fees for businesses in general, as well as fees related to transient merchants, and recommends that the city amend the business regulations to modify certain sections of chapters 110 and 113. Now, therefore, in light of the foregoing recitals, be it hereby ordained by the city as follows. Section 1, Code of Ordinances, Title 11, Business Regulations, Chapter 110, Section 110.02, shall be and hereby is amended to read as follows. Any words being added or indicated by a solid single line drawn underneath them, and any words being deleted by a solid single line drawn through them. And Section 110.02, the only change or amendment is that the license fee is increased, you'll notice on page 2, from $25 to $50. And then Section 2, the Code of Ordinances, Title 11, Business Regulations, Chapter 113, specifically Section 113.01, is amended, and it creates, or it modifies the definitions. So the temporary or transient business now will be defined as any business conducted for the sale or offer of sale of goods, wares, or merchandise which is carried on in any building, structure, motor vehicle, or real estate in one locality for a period of less than 6 continuous uninterrupted months in each year, and which employs no more than 50 persons at any one time as part of its business operations. That really is the newest language right there, the 6 months and the 50, no more than 50 employees. And then the transient merchant definition was modified to read as follows. Any person which shall include a sole proprietorship, but which shall not include any business organization such as a partnership, limited liability company, corporation, or any other recognized legal entity, which engages in, does, or transacts any temporary or transient business in the city, either in one locality or in traveling from place to place in the city, offering for sale or selling goods, wares, merchandise, or commodities of any kind, and includes those merchants who, for the purpose of carrying on the business, hire, lease, use, or occupy any building, structure, motor vehicle, or real estate. So with that definition, the real change of that one was that it truly has to be a person to be a merchant. It cannot be a business entity, which we just clarified that with this definition. And then Section 3, Code of Ordinances, Title 11, Chapter 113, specifically 113.07, is amended to read as follows. This is the permit fee for transient businesses and merchants. Each transient merchant or business, as those terms are defined in Section 113.01, prior to conducting business in the city, shall make an application for a transient merchant or a transient business permit, For a transient merchant, the fee shall be $10 per day with a minimum of 4 days, and for a transient business, the fee shall be $2.50 per day for a minimum of 4 days. But again, to be eligible for a transient business, the operation shall be for a period of not less than 6 continuous months in each year, and the transient business shall employ no more than 50 persons at any one time as part of its business operations. Section 4, this ordinance shall take effect upon its passage and publication according to law.
Thank you, Rich. You all have had in your packet since Thursday these proposed ordinance changes, and also we did discuss this in detail at the Finance Committee meeting. And I guess the first thing I want to do is to ask if anybody would like to make a motion that we approve this ordinance.
A motion by Manel.
Is there a second?
Second, Norris.
Okay. In the terms of discussion, we have Nick Hurt. Nick is our occupational license administrator who is here. Nick, if you would approach the podium, there might be a question about this, or if you want to explain kind of how we got here for the purposes for the final vote on this, okay?
Yes, sir. On the business license, increasing from 25 to 50, based on research looking around at our surrounding areas, Bowling Green, Cave City, we were lower. Also, by doing research and looking through our files, the business license, the fee had not been changed at least since 1975. So, honestly, I just feel like it's time that we kind of catch up with those around us. And I made mention to Mr. Burnell beforehand, since I became the administrators on July 1st, there has been 74 new businesses added to our books out of 78 days. There's a lot of new businesses coming in. But with that, there are also a lot of new businesses that are not lasting very long. I had one call Friday wanting to close their account. They have been in business for 3 months. So with this, I feel like it would be good to increase the fee. 2 reasons. One, it would cause people to rethink and look at their business plan and make sure they want to move forward. 2, those businesses that do not last very long, we are at least getting $50 instead of the $25. On the transient merchant and business, that, by looking at the ordinance that's there, it's kind of vague in what it says. This makes it a little more concrete. It breaks it up. Where before it was just $25, nothing changed. With this, it's going to give an option to individuals who want to try out a business, or they're only going to be here for 3 days or 4 days or 5 days. Instead of them having to pay the business license fee, then keep up with payroll, keep up with net profit, send a federal tax return, and in most cases, me having to track down the federal return and send multiple letters to get them to send it in. This is going to allow them to pay it up front, and they will not have to worry about it after that. Same way with a business. If a business is going to be here less than 6 months with less than 50 employees, they won't have to keep up with payroll. They won't have to keep up with net profit. They'll just pay up front. If they go over the 6 months, they will be required to get a full-fledged business license, no more temporary.
All right, questions for Nick?
So Nick, is this $50, I guess this is for all new applicants. Everybody else that has something will be grandfathered in, is that correct?
Yes, sir. What it is, it will only be the initial. So it will only be new businesses that come in. The people that are already in business, the annual is not going to change. It's still going to be $25, the minimum. So the only thing that is changing will be the initial cost.
Yes, we felt with the Finance Committee in our meeting, had the discussion on the 17th of October and talking with Nick that there's a lot of costs associated that he has in his office, and the $25 will help offset those additional costs. As you just mentioned about, checking on people, following up on people, a lot of other activity in his office. So that's going to help offset some of that cost. And then with the updates in the transient merchant and the transient business, that's going to give people a choice when they come to his office and start talking to him about license. Because right now, I mean, we've got it one way, and that's it. Now we want to give people a choice to see if it works or it doesn't work. And that, again, he'll have more tools in his toolbox to talk to people about, and people will have a lot more choices to make, but they're going to be better choices and more informed choices. So we think, through the Finance Committee, our recommendation is to move forward with this, with the increase, and it is the initial, it's not on existing business, everybody that's new, so those that fill out a new application starting when this goes into effect, and then with the transient merchant and the transient business, there are distinctions there. One's a business, a lot more employees, the merchants and individual was read, and it brings us up to date more than anything, and gives him a way to maintain that and can control better what's going on and manage it. And that's, again, what we've got to do is we've got to manage it in the right way and keep people. We want people to come to Glasgow and do business.
Yes.
We want to track it and make sure everyone's paying their fair share is our objective here.
So is this going to affect like the food vendors that sit up, or the sit, shop and stroll vendors and things like that as well?
It would affect food trucks. They would have the option. They don't have to get away from the full-fledged business license. They don't have to do the temporary or the transient. If they want to, they can. If they're coming from Bowling Green and they're only going to be here on a Saturday, then they can get the transient merchant or the transient business, depending on the size of them. And even though they stay one day, they're still going to have a minimum of 4 days that they have to pay. And my thinking in that is that will cover Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So basically a weekend. Give them an opportunity if they want to stay for a couple of days, 3 days, 4 days. But it will give them the option. Also, thinking of it in this term as an example, a caterer in Bowling Green has a wedding to cater on a Saturday. They're doing business in Glasgow. They have to have a business license. But if that's the one event they're doing all year, why would they have to buy a full business license? They could get a temporary or a transient, and it cover their time.
So how do you track that?
How do I track it? Basically, there'll have to be some changes made to our Springbrook system, and in that, it will tell me, I run an infractions report, I run an outstanding balances report every week. And what it will do is we'll set it up to where it will help me keep track. But also, I plan on developing an Excel spreadsheet that as they come in, I can put the transient business, the date that they took out the license, and then the date that it expired.
Now, to get out that we have this ordinance on our books, and other businesses will know that, and they will share that information. So we want to make this fair for everyone. Our current businesses that are paying their way, we want to make sure that people that are coming into Glasgow are going to be paying their way.
Yes.
And so they're not necessarily the gatekeeper, but word will get out about that we have this ordinance on the books, and that Nick and his office are the ones overseeing this and will keep monitoring this. So, again, we want you to do business in Glasgow, but we want you to pay your fair share. Just like a number of years ago, we have a company that we are working with, used to be called Datamax, but the name of it I just lost. What?
HDL.
HDL, thank you. HDL, that, they're helping us monitor people that are doing business in Glasgow as well. And we're getting, when they're not paying their fair share, they're reporting those individuals to Nick, and we're working with them to get the fees that are due to us.
Yeah, I get that. I just talking about like a caterer coming from Bowling Green. I mean, on the weekend, how do you follow that? You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Right.
Or a food truck coming on a Saturday. I mean, how do you? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Basically, right now, it is by word of mouth. If somebody contacts me, or if I'm driving around during the day looking, then if I see them, then I can approach them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you have to be out and about to
Yes, sir.
do
Yes.
that. I mean, but that's like working weekends too, though, for you.
When which I'm through here every Sunday, so.
It's not going to be 100%,
Right.
but it's going to be improvement than where we are today. And that's what we want. We want to make an improvement moving forward.
What's the fine if they don't participate in getting a business license?
Basically, their fine is they have to deal with me coming after them to get it. And I'm not meaning that funny, that's basically all there is. I will go and I will send letter after letter. If they do not respond, then I turn it over to our attorney. And then whatever court cost or anything that's associated with that. But I usually, within 2 to 3 letters, 3 is it. That's the last letter. Within 3 letters, they respond. Either they send in the business license with the money, they call to ask questions, or they email. And it's usually pretty quick.
We have a 10% problem sometime, or is it bigger than that? So you have a 10% problem, or is it a smaller problem? Is that kind
It would probably be, I'm going to say between 5 and 10%. It's not a huge problem. There are a few that I send letters to several times and to talk to them, try to get them to respond. But it's not too bad.
Other questions?
And I just want to say that, we appreciate, Nick, your work on this and helping to move us forward in it. I mean, I think it's the right move for the city, and his staff are, again, trying to work to bring it about and just to help us overall. We want business again, but we want everybody to pay their fair share, and this is a movement in the right direction. So, Nick, thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor of approving this ordinance indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, like sign. The ordinance carries. We have one more piece of new business to consider.
This is a resolution authorizing the City of Glasgow to dispose of surplus equipment pursuant to law that the Glasgow Police Department has designated as surplus. Be it hereby resolved by the city as follows. 1, the Glasgow Police Department has a 2013 Chevy Impala pursuant to Exhibit A that has been replaced with a new vehicle and currently has value. Per KRS 82.083-4D, the items listed will be sold by electronic auction following publication, including the URL code for the auction site, and shall be disposed of pursuant to law. Be it further resolved by the city that Mayor Royce shall be and hereby is authorized and directed to execute all documents necessary to complete the disposal of these items pursuant to law.
All right, you've heard the reading of this resolution about selling of this police department equipment. I'll entertain a motion that we approve this resolution.
Motion, Lowry.
Is there a second? Second. All right, any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The resolution carries. At this point, I would like to ask Police Chief Guy Howie to come to the podium. I'm just going to say it like this. Sometimes you just want to report success. And a combination of good leadership and some excellent use of city funding has resulted in a really, really, really positive thing that has happened with our police department. And I just, Chief Howie, he didn't like to brag. And I've been pushing him to come up here and tell some of the success that he's been having with this. So today, we get to hear from Chief Howie about the success of this new program. Sir.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. If you'll remember back in late July, we did a presentation for you on the Flock camera system, the license plate readers. So I just wanted to bring y'all up to speed. In August, we entered into a contract with Flock. In September the 11th, they installed 6 cameras around thoroughfares in Glasgow. And in that short time period, these cameras have resulted in the Glasgow Police Department recovering so far 3 stolen license plates, and connected with those come arrests, 3 arrest warrants, 1 firearm, That led to 6 drug-related cases. The one stolen license plate was from Bowling Green. Your police officers followed up on that flock alert to a local hotel and found the individual that was driving the car and made an arrest on a 2-time convicted drug trafficker who was in possession of another 1.4 ounces of methamphetamine and a firearm, bringing that into our community. The other one, the very first one we got was a stolen license plate out of Bowling Green. This was the very first flock alert in the very first week we had them up, and we arrested a young lady also in possession of meth, and she had an outstanding warrant. The most recent case that I really want to highlight for you happened on Friday. On Thursday, we had a young lady that left school property with this gentleman, an adult, and they left in a vehicle, in a truck. We were able to get the description of the truck and the tag number. We put it into the flock system. Throughout the investigation, the young lady left him, called for a ride to come home. We initiated warrants for that individual. We entered the truck into the flock system. When he came back into town, we got a flock alert and were immediately able to arrest him on site. Come to find out, that individual was already out on bond on 2 other cases, one from Warren County and one from Barron County. So these are just highlighted cases that would have probably never been found had we not had these flock cameras. And I'm hoping that the word gets out that we do have these cameras. We know you're coming into town. So I do have a couple pictures of some of these for you. That's the very first flock alert we had on the notification system. It was a stolen license plate out of Bowling Green that we made the arrest of the young lady on. This is the firearm with the separate magazine and the 1.4 ounces of meth that was taken from a local motel on a flock alert. This was the vehicle that was used in the interference with custodial interference investigation. That was the picture of the truck and the tag number. That's the actual flock camera image. So those are where we've been so far, where I hope to keep going, and I'll take any questions if y'all have any questions about the license plate readers.
How many do we have proposed, Chief Howard?
We have 6 functioning now. If we keep having a success rate in the next budget year, I'll be asking for some more funding for additional cameras.
And the cost per camera is?
Right now, it's about $3,000 per camera.
Okay.
So this year, we've spent $19,000 so far on cameras.
Good investment.
Yes, sir.
Chief, how does this work? Someone, of course, has to enter this at first, correct, into the system. And then how does the flock cameras alert it? Explain that to me.
Okay, so let's say, for example, we have a stolen car. That's entered into the National Crime Information Center. It's called NCIC. And any time a police officer stops a car or runs a tag, we'll get an alert that that car is stolen. That automatically goes into the flock system. So flock will access that. It's downloaded into the system. If we have just, let's take the interference with custody, for example. If we had just a description of a black Chevy pickup with a partial tag, or just a black Chevy pickup with a gold stripe, we can enter that ourselves into the flock system as a hot list. And any time that a vehicle matching that description would go through, it would pull it up. So if we, I don't know, let's say we had a burglar at a construction site and there was a black Dodge pickup truck. Don't look at me. Black Dodge pickup truck, and they stole a bunch of doors and windows and put it in there, we could actually search that, do a search in Flock for a black pickup truck with doors and windows in the back. It would search that through that artificial intelligence and bring us back results on any of the Flock cameras that it went through.
It's amazing technology. Other questions?
Yeah, it's amazing.
And I think from the original discussion, this can be used for amber alerts and for golden alerts too, can it?
Yes, sir. If there's a license plate and a vehicle put in, it most definitely will be put in.
Do most departments have the Flock systems now?
No, ma'am. So I don't know how many Louisville has. I know that Lexington has about 120 or 125 cameras. Elizabethtown, I believe, has, it's either 15 or 20 now. We have 6. I don't know how many they have in Hopkinsville, but there's quite a few in Hopkinsville. I understand that some of our neighboring cities are exploring, looking for.
How many would you like to see Glasgow have?
I would like to see, I'd like to see us have at least 10. I think that would cover the majority of the thoroughfares coming in and leaving.
And this is statewide. I mean, it goes into Tennessee, correct? If they're part of the system, or
it's national. As a matter of fact, one of the warrant arrests we made was on a vehicle with Florida plates, and the person was wanted for an aggravated assault out of Georgia with full extradition. And we got the Flock alert on that tag, and we located that individual at Walmart and made that arrest. So it's nationwide.
and I was speaking to an officer last week. These Flock cameras are in like a discrete location, right? I mean, they're not very visible. They're very small. Is that correct?
Pretty much, yep.
Thank you.
I mean, you could play Pokemon, I guess, and go around and try to find them if you wanted.
Any other questions you would like to ask the chief? It's really, I think it's good news. It's a good news, excellent work on the department's part and on using our funding for a good purpose. And I'm really glad that you're here to give us a report. And we already, it's amazing. You know, the dollar value of what the success you've had far exceeds what we've invested in it already. So I'd like to see more and more of that happen, sir.
You got six policemen for $19,000 so far, so that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, that really is. Very good. Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
very much, Chief, for being here with us. A couple of other announcements I want to talk about. Let's do this chronologically. We have Halloween coming up, and we have the Halloween Fest on the 27th, which is Friday, from 6 until 8 p.m. out at Ralphie's, actually at the Grove there behind Ralphie's at 702 Happy Valley Road. If you didn't get to go to that last year, you missed a big time, and I would encourage you to come this year for that on Friday night. The 28th, it's the Cruise In Trunk or Treat at Beaver Trail. The Cruise In begins at 2, and the Trunk or Treat begins at 5, or until the candy runs out. And then at 7 o'clock on Tuesday, which is actually Halloween, the City of Glasgow Halloween trick-or-treating is going to be Tuesday. That'll be from 4:30 until 7 p.m. So a lot of Halloween activities that we have just on our announcement board right here. And then we move from Halloween to the holiday season, the Christmas season. Kevin Myatt, wearing his Renaissance Glasgow hat, is going to come up here and talk about an event that's coming up for Light Up Glasgow.
Real quick, November 17th, I think you might have some of the flyers sitting with you all. It's the Light Up Glasgow event that's here on the square. This year, NEMAC is going to sponsor the movie that we're going to offer that's going to be projected onto City Hall here for the families and citizens of Glasgow. It's Frosty's Winter Wonderland. We'll have the Barron County and Glasgow High School choruses here to sing, and then have the Light Up event kick off, and then have the movie immediately following that. There'll also be a ornament for the first 100 families that come with Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus, so they'll be handed out as well. The next day, The rec department will have the turkey trot, the annual turkey trot for that, so put that down as well, and I know there's other things happening that day too.
There's just a lot of stuff happening and a lot of folks involved in making it happen, and everybody out over there at the plaza the other night at the end of the Lowdown Showdown, there was such a feel, such a community feel inside of that building about how much everybody enjoyed being there for a good purpose and having a great facility to do it in, and we're going to see more and more of that in Halloween and holidays and everything else. Thank you, Kevin, for passing that along, sir.
Since you bring up the plaza this weekend, in case you don't have something to do off this long list, the Far Off Broadway Players are doing Frankenstein
Right.
on Friday night, Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, and Sunday afternoon.
I understand it's a stellar production.
Yes.
Looking forward to it. Also on Saturday, in the morning, come out to the landfill. We're going to have recycling going on from 8 o'clock until 11:30 at the Glasgow Regional Landfill. There's a really nice new recycling hut out there that you use, and it makes it a lot easier. It's very pleasant. And it's oh, it's large item drop-off, is it? Okay. All right. So you want to comment on, you want to give us, you want to define large items by chance? Okay, mattresses and couches. Refrigerators, all right. Just bring out there. Yeah. And I would say that in my experience of taking large items out there, they're good about helping you, get them off of the truck and out of the way for sure.
Yes, they have a plan for all that.
Okay. All right.
If you have a neighbor or somebody that needs help getting stuff to the landfill, that would be a perfect opportunity to do your good deed.
Yeah, it's good. It's another good feeling. And Chief Howie has something to add too. Sir, come on up here to the microphone.
I'm sorry, I meant to say that the flock cameras were not Chief Howie's idea. Chief Howie took the idea from Sergeant Cowan.
Okay.
And gave him the go-ahead to do it. So it came from Sergeant Cowan. It wasn't,
All right.
It wasn't a Chief Howie idea. It was a member, one of your police officers that came up with the idea.
Well,
so kudos to Sergeant Cowan. He's done a great job.
Well, thank you for pointing that out, sir. It's just more good news. And let's see, Veterans Day, the City Hall is going to be closed on Friday, November the 10th in observance of Veterans Day. The next council meeting is going to be that following Monday, November the 13th, so we'll look forward to getting to be here and learn a lot of things here. And Kevin might have something else he wants to say.
The live event is going to be from 5 till the movie is over.
All right.
It starts at 5 p.m.
Okay, all right. We'll be having a lot more on our social media platforms to get that out there, but just be watching because there's a lot of good things that are going to be coming up that we're going to celebrate. All right, I will at this point.
Mayor, I got one.
I'm sorry, Joe, I'm sorry. You're way down there. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. And the question I have is, in November the 7th is the election day.
Yes.
And before doing the primary in the spring, a question arose about the limited number of voting locations in the county. And due to whatever time and everything else, we're not going to have a meeting prior to the election day where we normally have a briefing from Ms. Helen Chase Birdwell about what's going to be the status of those, the complaint was there was a limited number. Actually, there was only, I believe, Barron County available on election day, and it was supposed to remedy that. So I think the community would be, if there's any way we can send out something, maybe an inquiry to her office, and then a publication of something saying if there's going to be new additional locations, or are we still just going to be limited to whatever. I think it's very important that that happens since this is the general election for the state.
That is an excellent point, Joe, and we will get that information from Mrs. Birdwell because, they have, it seems like they've been trying to get the right number in the right places, and so it changes a little bit each election. So I think it would be good that we, through our website and through our social media, get that from her and publish it so that people in the city will be able to look on city sites to know where the voting precincts are, and that's a really good point. Very good point, Joe. Thank you for bringing that up. At this point, I will entertain a motion that we adjourn.
Motion.
Is there a second? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Thank you all very much for your attendance.